Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Nice. No technical issues. I can't believe it because they
I
almost
know
always
it's
start off with
incredible.
tech issues. It's amazing. How are
How are
you doing,
you?
Chuck?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It feels like it's been like you've grown this big full beard since the last time we saw you.
What are we gonna do in COVID land, lockdown land?
Oh God, this year has been terrible.
It's it's a very different year. It's a very weird year for
Doesn't it
sure.
feel like it almost feels like a waking nightmare? That's honestly what it feels like.
It's definitely stressful. I tell
Yeah,
everybody that to have this many people uh, having the same amounts of stress. Some people way more than others. We've been pretty lucky. I mean, the conventions all went away, which were a
yeah,
significant portion of my income. But we were able to bob and weave and figure stuff out and make it work. So we're good. But I know lots of people who are struggling pretty hard. So I
yeah.
just have to be. But that amount of people being stressed at the same time, it's just not stressed and wearing masks and staying away from each other. It's
I
like all
know.
things that make life worth living are
And
not there
livelihoods
anymore. Yeah,
destroyed, livelihoods
yeah.
gone. People,
Businesses gone. Yeah.
it's just I can't hardly put it into word. I like your green screen. Whatever you're doing with your green screen, I can see through your bottle when you're drinking.
Look at my mansion,
Like, oh,
my magic bottle.
are you in your home vocal booth?
No, I'm just in my office.
Oh, in your
My
office.
my
Okay.
booth is not as comfortable as my office.
Oh no,
My office has better lighting.
your booth looks like you've got an actual, like a literal booth to sit on. You know, like the booths
Oh, I
in
did.
the restaurant.
That was years ago. We've moved into a new
Oh,
house. I have a a much bigger closet now.
oh, it's a bigger, it's a
Yeah,
closet.
yeah, it's a bigger closet. It was two closets. They turned into one sort of room with the closets on the side. So it's like a
Oh,
changing, like a dressing room. But
okay.
I just sort of walled off the where they hang the clothes and the sort of dressing area is my booth.
I have pointed out on multiple occasions on my channel about voice actors and professional voice actors and how a lot of times their booth at home is their closet
Yeah, well,
because it's
I
a
mean,
great
it makes
place.
sense. It's
Yeah,
structurally already built to sort of handle it, and clothes are
hmm,
naturally sound dampening. And I mean, if you
exactly.
have the room and you can spend $4,000 on a whisper room, that's better. But I mean, I was at Todd Habercorn's studio, and it's a room, so it's a full room, and he's got sound attenuation in it. But it's it's just a small room in his house. Of course, he's
Yeah,
in LA, so all the not all the rooms are small, but
a
LA is
lot of them.
expensive.
A lot of them are small. Did he build his own? Did he actually fit? Because I built the studio in my basement, much
Yeah,
cheaper than getting a whisper room. Did he build
this
his?
is no, it's just a room. It's just the
Oh,
room, and he
room.
put
Sorry.
sound attenuation on the walls. There's no windows in the room, so
Yeah.
it's sort of an interior room. Or if there
Okay.
was a window, he had covered it. I feel like there wasn't a window. Maybe there was, and he had covered it. I'm trying to think of what. Yeah, maybe he had filled in a window, which
Okay.
is what you do,
Okay.
to make it
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah. Windows aren't helpful when you're trying to get rid
No,
of outside sound for sure.
not at all.
Okay. Well, that was a long ass sort of intro, but yeah,
Sure.
it's been so long since we've seen each other face to face. I miss seeing you and Jessica at the cons and
I
everything,
know.
and that just is whatever.
Right.
Anyway,
What are you
so
going to do?
I know, right? Anyway, so for purposes of introduction, I'm terrible. I just kind of jump right into talking,
That's all
and
right.
sometimes I forget to make the introduction. This is Chuck Huber, renowned voice actor, and I asked him very
Hello.
nicely if he could come and do an interview with me on my channel, and he very nicely
It
said
was
yes.
pretty angry when you did it. You were like, "Interview me," and I was
Yeah, I
like,
know.
"Why are you so mad all the
I try to
time?"
pretend I'm nice, but I'm really not. Just it's just the cover. No, teasing. So, okay, for anybody who doesn't know, and I've heard your story a few times at your panels and things,
Sure.
but for anybody watching, if they don't know, tell us your story about how you got into voice acting, because I
Yeah.
think
Well,
it's kind of an interesting story.
Yeah, I started as an actor, in junior high and high school and competed in forensic competitions and then went to school at the Goodman School of Drama in Chicago and started my career there for about a decade and then moved to Texas. And when I moved to Texas, my intention was to start a theater company. And the first thing we did was started an improv group. And we had an improv show. And my buddy Brad Jackson had come into rehearsals one day and he was like, "Hey, you should go audition for this Dragon Balls thing." And I was like, "Dragon Balls? That sounds like porn."
Right.
And he was like, "No, it's Japanese anime." And I'm like, "Oh, so it's for sure it's porn." And he was like, "No, it's cool. It's fun. Call this dude, Chris Sabat." And he gave me his number. And I called him and he was like, "Yeah, man, come on in. Come on, we'll do an audition." And I went and auditioned. The first thing I auditioned for was Garlic Jr. Actually, I think Garlic Jr. was the first thing I auditioned for. First thing I recorded was one of his henchmen. But I literally did the audition and then Chris was like, "Oh, that was great, man. You got time like right now to record you And I was like, "Really? I got the job and now I just start recording?" It's like, this is not real. This isn't real. These people this is a multi-level marketing scam or something.
Right,
like they're gonna ask me to buy some anime in a minute. And I finished. And I went home and they sent me a check and I was like, "All right, I guess it's real."
Yeah. It's an interesting start. I mean, it feels like it's so random, but you had the training already, so you knew how to act.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand is that it doesn't happen to you if you're not already in the industry. Like I look at what I did 10-year career, moved to cities, started a theater company, had an improv group. You're in the mix. You're
exactly.
And so then you have relationships, you have network connection. My good friend Brad Jackson gave me the number to go do this audition. Otherwise, I totally would have missed it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I almost skipped it that day. Because I was like, it was a terrible day. I had a flat tire. And
I remember that story.
Yeah. My bank account was overdrawn and I was just not interested in I just thought it was stupid. I had done some pretty high level stuff in Chicago. And so going to a bank building to record some cartoons, I was like, this. I did Shakespeare on the stage at the Goodman. So I was pretty
how far you've fallen.
Right. And all my friends are like, "How do I get into anime?"
Exactly. I know. Yeah. It's it's a fascinating industry. I think a lot of people are drawn to it because it seems like so much fun.
Right.
But I don't know if I do audiobooks. That's what I work on.
Sure.
I had narrated before I even got into, becoming an audiobook proofer or anything like that. But it seems like a lot of fun, but it's not really all that glamorous when you're in the nitty gritty of it.
It's fun. I mean, the part that was the most fun was in the beginning. There was no, it wasn't so popular. It was just us being, goofy young artists and hanging out and doing funny voices and trying to throw in ridiculous jokes or whatever. And
so what year was that when you?
That would have been 1998. 22 years I've been doing this now. Yeah.
And your first convention was how long after was it the first convention you went to that you saw all those people lined up to see?
Yeah. So my very first convention was San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, well, that was a huge one.
Yeah. I started with a big one.
Yes, you did.
And I didn't know what I was going to do at the convention. I assumed they were bringing me there because I'd worked conventions before as an actor. I'd worked for a company that needs people at their booth to read copy and say, try and hand out stuff. And so I'd done that for $10-15 an hour in Chicago previously. And so I assumed that's what I was going to do there. And then when I got there, I'm like, well, what's the schedule? What are we doing? And they're like, well, you got autographs from 2 to 6. And I was like, autographs?
Right.
Like, you don't know how autographs work. Nobody's going to get my autograph. Why would people get my autograph? And they were like, "No, we'll just show up here." And gave me a little map. It said right here. And I I went and I showed up and there was a line. I signed autographs for 4 hours. I'd never signed autographs. I never signed a single autograph before. And suddenly I was like, what is happening? I really didn't know what was going on. I was kind of like, I didn't understand.
It must have felt so surreal too.
Yeah, especially the first like 30 minutes were super surreal because I was like, because people were crying and telling me stories about how they watched, Yu Yu Hakusho. This was during Yu Yu Hakusho days. So it was, they watched Yu Yu Hakusho with their dad when he was dying of cancer. And then you get all you're like, I'm not, so like you have to, like suddenly your ego has to take a real serious backseat to like the moment that everybody's having. Cause even the sort of rejection of it is an ego-based reaction. Cause you're like, I don't understand what, like, I'm not ready for this. But then you sort of settle into it. I've been a teacher all my life. So I just turned it into, well, okay, this is like teaching one kid at a time and talking one kid at a time. Yeah. So yeah,
that's a good approach to that. Because I was going to ask you about, I saw that you'd been a principal. For a while. So that's a very smart. I can't get over seeing through your water glass every time you it's magic. Right, exactly.
I think I want some water.
Just pull it right out of thin air. Right. Okay, so I was trying to think of some really smart, witty type questions to ask you. So I wrote down some stuff. I actually sort of came a little prepared. A lot of times I'm just like, well, let's just talk. And then I'll just ask what comes to me. But anyway, I don't want to waste your time too much. So I wrote some stuff down. So one of the questions that I was asked to ask you, I think Arturo, my son, asked me to ask you this.
Okay.
What is the most difficult character you had to play? And I don't know by difficult if he meant physically difficult on your voice or emotionally difficult to connect with, or just actually be able to.
Shao Tucker from Full Metal Alchemist. He's a well-hated character in
he is.
Whole genre of anime. He's up there in the top 5 of most hated characters of all time. He was difficult not because of what he did and how much everybody hated him. That's actually very fun for me to have people like come up to the table and like be really mad at me because they're playing most of the time.
Okay.
They're not really mad. They're like, we hate you. And I'm like, then I get to tease them.
But you love it.
Nina,
love it.
And
I do love it. On your table.
I don't anymore. They stole it at somebody stole it. I had it on my table and somebody took it.
Oh, that's terrible.
So I've done it my Nina. I had a Nina Alexander plushie that somebody made for me, and now it's gone.
Oh no!
So if anyone wants to make me one, that'd be great.
That would be great. Maybe somebody can do that for you. Okay, so
he was difficult because after he transformed, he whispered, and acting while whispering is very difficult. There's just not a lot you can do with a whisper. It's also very hard on your voice to whisper. People think, I'm losing my voice, I should whisper. No, actually, you just don't talk at all because whispering is hard on the vocal cords. But so he was difficult in both ways. That way, I'd say Emperor Pilaf is the most physically demanding character I have. He's just so full of like energy and vibration and it's like physically taxing. Like as I get older, I'm like, whew, I used to, all right, okay, I gotta let me stretch out. Let me get ready for this, because it's not, when I was 27, 28 or whatever, I could fire it off with no problem. And energy for days.
You get in, when you say tiring, you mean on your voice, your throat too, or just the physicality you getting into the character?
Both of them, physically and the voice. It takes a lot of energy to make that, because he's pretty extreme. He's like up here with his energy level. So it's just a matter of like, because you got to match that energy level. You personally as a human have to be at the same energy level as your character. Otherwise, it just looks weird.
Right. Yeah.
It's like that's not
true.
That's not correct. He should be the other. He
The
should
way
have a
you're
little more
physically
energy.
exactly, but the way you're physically acting, it does transfer into the voice, and you can tell when people
It's
just
true.
aren't doing what they need to do. It's kind of funny to watch how voice actors do what they do and the facial expressions and body movements they make in order to get it, but it helps. I mean, it's what makes it convincing.
It is what makes it convincing. That's absolutely correct.
So what was your most enjoyable character? The one that the one that you have the most fun with?
I'd say Dr. Stein from Soul Eater is probably one of my favorite from an acting perspective, because he has such a really good sort of character arc.
Yeah,
you get to watch him descend into madness, and so that was fun from an acting standpoint. From just a pure like Android 17 and Hiei, like the fans love those characters so much. Hiei and Android 17 are similar too, in that they're pretty chill characters most of the time, unless they're fighting. And even when Android 17 was fighting in the original DBZ, he made no noise. We'd listen to the Japanese and be like, nope, that's just sound effects. And I'd be like, all right, go ahead, roll past it. And I didn't have to do any of the fight reacts.
I mean, he's an android. He's not
right.
He doesn't
have to make noises. That's correct.
Yeah.
He does do noises in DB Super a little bit more. There's they're humanizing him a little more, obviously, with the family and the kids and stuff. So there were some moments in DB Super that were I was like, holy crap, that's hard to scream like that. That hurts. But other than that, he's mostly super chill. He's mostly just like says things.
So pretty easy.
I just have to think about what I'm saying and say it.
Yeah.
And, that the writers have done their job. The artists have done their job. Android 17 doesn't, there's little nuances we can try to pull. Raleigh and I'll try to pull out of it to make the comedy better, or make the point, or make them a little snarkier. But other than that, he's a super easy character to do. I don't have, like, as an actor, if I'm going in for Emperor Pilaf, I'm like, okay, I better be ready. But if I'm going in for Android 17, I'm like, all right, let's do this.
I got this.
I don't have to sweat it, because he doesn't sweat.
No, he literally doesn't, right?
No, not at all.
Okay, so during this whole COVID stuff from this year, have you had to do any voice acting from your home studio, or has that all just?
Mm-hmm.
I know that they've recorded some of the shows that were, or at least one of the shows that I know of on Toonami. That I watch Toonami sometimes with my son, and I think Boruto, they had this message up there saying that this episode, and I don't remember how many episodes, all the voice actors had recorded in their home, and I was quite impressed with the quality.
Yeah, it's not too hard to get decent quality. I did some video game stuff for Okratron from my studio, and I've done some other remote sessions and stuff for other clients, but the DBZ stuff was the biggest stuff I did, and the technology they have nowadays, you used to have to buy like a $15,000 ISDN line in order to be like super hacked into the internet, so that there was no latency between you and the studio. But nowadays they do it all through algorithms, and there's Source Connect is the one people mostly use. There was another one that Stephen put me on for I can't remember what it was called, but it wasn't Source Connect, but it was super clear, super easy. There was a little bit of a little bit of difficulty with his mic to me, but my stuff going to him was fine. So, and then the only thing you have to do when you're doing that is you become an engineer, in that you have to adjust your gain. So like if you're yelling, you got to turn it down, but you kind of know where it's got to be, and you just do it once. And it's like, no, it's got to be lower. So, there's really not much difference.
Yeah. So he's on his end, and you're at home, and he's directing you, and you're kind of managing the tech stuff.
Yeah. And he's managing most of the tech, because he's recording it all. So it's all going into his Pro Tools. But I'm in control of the the preamp. So I'm in control of the input. So I get to say how loud or how soft I am. And for me, Okratron's almost an hour away. So I was scheduled for an hour-long session, which would have been 3 hours, an hour driving there, an hour in the session, and an hour driving home. As it was, I kind of woke up, booted everything up, went in the studio. He's like, "Are you ready?" Like, he texted me early. He's like, "I'm done early. Do you want to go early?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." We booted it up. We didn't have that much to do. So it was like, 10, 15 minutes of work. And that was it. I was done. I was like, that was so much easier because especially if you drive out there, there's no way for me to have gone early. I would have gotten there and sat out in my car because of COVID.
Right.
You don't want to be in there until it's time. And then I would have walked in and, so it was nice. I think this distributed recording scheme is going to work out well for the industry as a whole. Because now, as I tell actors, the whole world can be your client. You can work anywhere in the world that uses, the languages that you speak.
Exactly. Well, one thing that I thought was, so, how a lot of times in the cons and people ask, how do you get into voice acting? That's obviously one of that's the biggest question that's asked.
Sure.
And people, generally the voice actors will talk about, so like with audiobooks, you can do that from your home. It's pretty well established. That's very easy to do from your home. But when they say things like, well, for video games or for if you're going to get into anime and things like that, you really have to be in a place where there's a studio and da da da. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. This year has kind of shown that if you've got your stuff together, you probably don't necessarily need to relocate to a place like New York or Los Angeles in order to get into the industry. I think it'll open up.
I would agree. I think Funimation is a little bit hesitant to bring in new people with their studios. They've been very open about using people remotely that they already have an established relationship with. So I don't think that's changing too much for Funimation, but they have a giant pool of people that they can choose from. They don't really need to go seeking out a whole lot of new talent from other places. They have most of it right here in the DFW area. Although I would bet that that's even going to change. I would bet that they're even going to start, especially with the acquisition of Crunchyroll. I think that's going to open up most of LA to the Funimation auditions. Because I think that there might be some, like, that might start being a crossover thing that could happen. And once you do that, then you kind of say, well, why aren't we doing Atlanta? Why not Chicago? Why not New York? And so once you do that, you're like, well, we got our people down in Houston. Why make them drive up? Because we have Funimation has a big relationship with Sentai studios down there, Sentai Films. So, a lot of the anime that's done out of Houston has a lot of the same actors from DFW go down there. And so I don't know, it may open up, but they're not the only game in town. They're the biggest game in town. But if you want to get in the industry, I see people regularly on Twitter posting the new character they got. And I look up the company that they got the character at, and it's, it's just a little independent studio, and they recorded from their studio and their studio at home. And, so there's a lot of little studios, independent studios cropping up that I think, and once you're in something, if you happen to be in, and Funimation obviously has all the really big properties, but the next really, really big thing is, other than the established big things that Funimation gets the first crack at, I'm saying new independent things that become big, like South Park or Simpsons or SpongeBob or whatever, is going to come from an independent studio. And so I always encourage students to, when they're like, when you're young and you're starting out or whatever, yes, you pretty much try to audition for everything, but there are so many auditions you can do. Even now, you should be looking at auditions in terms of, do I like this? Do I like this? Do I enjoy this? Do I think this is awesome? So of course you want to work. So you want to tell everybody that they're awesome. But when you have an actual connection, you're like, God, what these guys are doing with this video game is so amazing.
Yeah.
I really want to be a part of it. And when conventions boot up again, I always tell actors, go to conventions, go to the booths, see what the indie people are doing. See, anyone with a screen up showing their trailer or whatever, their sizzle reel, that make a connection. They may not know how to get voice actors. They may just be the guys behind the scene there. So you may be the first one, like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. That's
and then it becomes the next DBZ, and you're like, holy cow, I can't believe
exactly.
My wife tells a story about a friend of hers who is an artist. My wife's an artist, and
she has a very nice Etsy shop, by the way. I'll try to put a link in the description of the video. Okay, go
Absolutely. ahead. She had a friend who was. She asked him, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm working on some. I don't know. It's some weird. It's like a sponge that lives under the sea. I don't know." like he was totally poo-pooing it. And not poo-pooing it, but if you were drawing SpongeBob, you'd be like, I don't know about this. I don't know if this is going to work. But then suddenly it does.
Right, exactly. That's funny. It's interesting how stories like that end up. I find it fascinating because you honestly never really know sometimes.
No,
but so I noticed you do a lot of teaching.
I do.
And does that take up the bulk of your time? Because you're always busy with these classes, it seems like.
Yeah, I've transitioned. Listen, I've done anime for 22 years. If a director calls me and is like, Chuck, I really want you for this part, I will say yes, of course. I have a bunch of established characters and things that will be continuing and ongoing. And of course, I'm going to do all those. But I'm not not that I'm above it. It's just that teaching is something that gives me a lot of, it's new. First of all, I'm adding classes all the time. We've added Shakespeare and improv with new teachers. Andy Field teaches the business of voiceover. The audience for it is the same as the anime audience, but it's also broader. Jonathan Pitts, we're world-renowned improvisers, our improv teacher, Chicago improv guy. He brings all these other improvisers from all over the world to the audience, and so just honestly, the time for, because even as established as I am, I don't get every audition I audition for. People assume that you do, but you don't.
Yeah.
And so the time for, number one, it's the enjoyment. Do I enjoy auditioning for, random anime stuff? And if you're going to be up there and be an anime actor at Funimation, you have to be present for all the stuff. You got to be the guy who's like, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do whatever. And I'm kind of like, no, I don't really want to just do whatever anymore. I want to do really good work.
Right.
So if there's something amazing and you think I might be good for it, yes, I would love to read for it. But other than that, I don't need to be on the audition list for the 170 different shows that Funimation does every year.
Yeah.
The teaching gives me more control. I'm in charge of when I work. The amount of time you spend auditioning for voice acting compared to the benefit you get from it, for me anyway, I can put that same amount of time into teaching and enjoy it more. Whereas when you're doing voice acting, you're like, okay, I gotta shut down the AC and make sure that the kids know I'm recording and they're not, and then you go in there and it's not really enjoyable copy. And you got to do 100, you got to do 99 things that you're like, yeah, I can do this, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
To get to that 100th thing where you're like, ooh, I'm so excited for this.
Right. Yeah.
So I've did it for 22 years. I'll still do it in the future. I'm sure other things will come up. I'm interested in doing work for independent studios, actually. If some, I'd be interested in doing that from home, just because it's different and it would be supportive to the sort of base layer of the industry that seems to be growing up. That would be cool.
Well, I can attest to you being willing to work on like little independent type things. You did voices for Aurelia for
That's
her.
true. That's true. I did
for her cartoon. She has not even animated that those episodes yet. That got put on hold. So she's kind of focusing on gaming now, but she's going to jump back into the into her. I think it was season 5. I can't remember, but she's got some other people that she wanted to try to see if they could add some voices. So we're trying to figure that out. I don't know when it'll happen. We'll see.
Everything's always in development. Everything's always.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. So I was talking about the teaching, but this ties a little bit into my next question, which was about how you did ADR directing.
Yeah.
And how does that work?
Yeah, the ADR directing is very difficult. I did it for half a year or so.
Oh, that's all you did it for. So
because I didn't. It was too much. It was too hard. I respect those ADR directors so much. You have to watch every single episode. You have to check the scripts. You got to make sure all the stuff makes sense and everything connects in the right way. Because you're the director. So you're the one who's like, it's on you if after everything's recorded, something got missed or a character's name was wrong.
Yeah.
And then the process of it is, and generally speaking in the anime dubbing world, the process is a disjointed artistic process. You get to enjoy it when it's completed, but I'm not one to watch even stuff that I'm in. I don't really? Necessarily. Yeah. I don't enjoy seeing me because I can't trick me. I can't fool me.
Just me.
Yeah. I'm like, it ruins the story. So I will check something out and I'll be like, yeah, that looks good. That's cool. I watched DB Super because it was such a big event, especially the ending, the last couple episodes there. But yeah, if I'm in something, I'm not necessarily interested. So I don't get any of the payoff as a director because the payoff for a director is being able to enjoy your show once it's complete.
Right.
The work in the booth is focus oriented. So you got to be focused the whole time. You can't sort of let down. You got to always be lifting your actors to their best level. And, it's a job where you sit in front of a screen for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And so it didn't match with my spirit as much as I thought it would when I started it. But I respect the directors. The directors, all the directors up at Funimation do a really good job. To a person, yes, all of them are good. They're different. They all have their different styles, but they all do excellent work. It's a job about taking elements and artistic elements from multiple different sources and putting them all together in one thing. Yeah. So it's a bit of a factory job up there.
That's pretty challenging, though.
Yeah, it is.
Does that also involve the script writing, or is that somebody else? Because, I know you have people that also take the original Japanese script and they rewrite it.
Yeah, I did that for 4 or 5 years. I wrote Sergeant Frog season 3. I wrote Bakano. I wrote Oedo Rocket. I wrote Hetalia. What else did I do? Dragonaut, a bunch of different ones. And I wrote some DBZ back in the day. Back when we used to have to write it by watching VHS tapes and you had to pause it and try to figure out what they were saying.
I wondered what that laugh was about. So
yeah, it was terrible.
Oh, it sounds, I'm sure I can imagine. So I like to ask about like little tech type nitty gritty behind the scenes stuff. So when you get, so you have somebody translate it from the original language to English, and then you just kind of reshape that into what you think will fit better here based on culture and the way we talk and everything.
Yeah. So you get a rough translation and then you watch the episode line by line, flap by flap, word by word. Mm-hmm. And it ends up being a word. I enjoyed it because it's definitely tedious. It's definitely focus oriented, but I enjoyed it because it challenged your brain because you'd see the character go flap, 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 flap. And the line would be, we have to get over to Grandpa's house today. You'd be like, flap, 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 flap. How am I going to
fit that in, right?
Yeah. And then like maybe you have to rearrange. Let's try to like do, if you had to rearrange lines, that was always a big deal because you got to get back on track then, pretty quick after. Bacana was fun. It was set in a bunch of different times, but one of the time periods was the 20s. So I had like this glossary of 20s terms out that I was always trying to get, trying to create the world. And then once you get like, I wrote primarily with Jamie Markey, and I were writing partners together. I would submit stuff to her and review it, and she would submit stuff to me and I would review it. And you get all the words correct. So that it fits the flaps. And then the next step is this in the character's voice? What's the character's voice? How do I distinguish this character? Are they rougher? Are they smoother? Are they, more fiery? What's the type of language do they use big words? Do they use small words? What's their vocabulary like? How can I trim? Because otherwise everybody can sound like it's in your voice, and you don't want that because you don't want everybody sounding like Chuck. You always know when you get a character, you're like, oh, I can just write him like me because he's enough in my voice that I can just be me on that character, and that's a little easier. But then when you're in some other character that's not you got to think, well, how does this person talk? How do they communicate?
You have to be.
And I'm a writer. I write a lot of different. I've written several movies and poetry, and so I enjoy the craft of writing a lot too.
Well, that helps. And and it helps also, like you said, you have to be super in touch with the character. So do you write, have you also written lines tailored to who you either know is going to act them or who you are hoping is going to act them?
Well, when we did Hitalia, Jamie had called out the narrator as hers. So everything got written in her voice.
Okay.
She was like, I'm going to be the narrator. I'm like, all right, girl, we got this. And so we wrote everything Jamie wrote her episodes very Jamie-like. And then I was writing in her voice, and when she would review mine, she'd tweak them a little bit. Even more in her direction. So that was an instance where we were able to do that. But most of the time when you're writing, you don't know who's going to be cast.
Okay.
That's sometimes when the writing and acting can get a little crossways, is because you picture the character a certain way and it's different from how the director pictured it. And suddenly it's usually a matter of pacing. The director feels this character at a slower or faster pace, and you've written it in a faster or slower pace. And so they don't match up. And so sometimes you got to do rewrites for something like that.
Hash that out.
Yeah. Add some stuff here and there.
So, okay. Trying to, I was going to ask next what sort of writing you do. You kind of touched on that already.
Yeah. I write poetry. I write poetry in verse. I like writing in verse. I have a novel. I've got 2 screenplays.
You have a novel?
I had a lot of it, and then it didn't have it backed up, and it was on a computer, so I'm left with only 27 pages of it. I had like 200, I was 230 pages into it. It was kind of an epic. I keep threatening to pick it back up again, but then I have other ideas. I got other movies I want to write.
That's
I've been very into the poetry lately. I mean, I wrote a Snow White and Rose Red and Anapestic tetrameter, which Jess is going to illustrate at some point.
Oh, I was going to ask because you guys worked on a book together. The Invisible.
Yeah, Dreams of the Invisible Girl.
Dreams of the Invisible Girl, yeah.
Yeah, that was a story starter book. So I only had to write like the initial one of her pictures, and then a little bit of to get kids thinking about like what does this picture look like, and so I would creatively write something that so it was it's a consumable for teachers, for writing teachers.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. Cool. So your poetry, is it just you just write it for fun, or are you going to publish it, or have you ever published? I didn't.
We were offered a contract for the Snow White and Rose Red, and we were in the middle of buying a house and a bunch of other stuff. So we just couldn't get to it. And eventually the contract expired. And they were like, good luck to you, but we're going to go ahead and let you go. So we were offered a publishing contract. we've been kind of busy. It's a lot of work. I've done all my work on that poem took almost 2.5 years. So, because it's a full story, and so Jess, her pictures on it, that's if your income is covered and you don't have to make money off your art takes its own time. You don't have to.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't have to rush it. I know she'll draw the pictures at some point. So
yeah. Well, that's exciting. Hopefully, it will all come together, and you'll be able to see the it will all come to fruition. What you're hoping for
someday.
Someday. Who knows when? Right? I know. I have a novel I wrote and finished.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, but I never published it because I'm still revising it.
Right.
Meanwhile, my brother publishes 2 novels. It's like, okay, all right, Tim, you're ahead of me. I helped him edit it, but I've just never gotten around to my own, because it's just, you're so busy with other stuff. I get it. And you don't always feel compelled to work on certain things sometimes, because it depends on what sort of creative energy it takes from you, and you're not always up for it. So
yeah, I think we part of the problem is we like the pace of our life, and so to add something major to it requires us to delete something else. And we look around and there's not much we want to, there's nothing we want to delete right now. So it's like, to pick up a new project would mean changing our family structure slightly. It wouldn't be massive, but we're not yet. Yeah. Maybe in a year or two. Kids are still young. Kids are still. We got 2 10-year-olds. So by the time they're 12 or 13, they won't need as much of our attention and
oversight. Yeah. Maybe things will be a little bit more back to normal then.
That would be nice.
You still doing the schooling at home? Are they still doing that?
No, they're back. They're back in school.
Oh, they're back in school now. Okay, all right. Well, at least there's that. But who knows how long that will last?
Thank God. That was not my favorite. We had 5 kids Zooming at once, all in the house. 5 different with 1, 2, 3, 4 different. 4 different schools and procedures and logins and passwords.
I know. No, I get it. I only have the 2 and I homeschooled. So I get it, but I can't. No, it's all right.
Yeah. I was threatened. Because I could have homeschooled the amount of time and it wasn't the time it took. It was the randomness of the time it took. So you'd be like, I'd be mid this, and suddenly somebody would need me to get their class set up, and they all have different schedules. And I was like, it just felt like a constant, like you could never get any traction in your day. At one point, I wanted because the teachers are always asking us to help with the Zoom and fix up the thing. And there's all this parental work on this end. And so at one point I wanted to go to one of my children's teachers and be like, I'm going to have him do it on the phone. Would you mind walking him into his room and helping him organize his closet? And she what? And I was like, well, we're at home doing our jobs and you're having us help you do yours. I just thought you might be able to help us.
Right. Well, that's a good point, because a lot of people, they don't realize, people that work from home.
Right.
They don't really understand how much you actually are really working, even though you got the freedom to do. Oh my gosh, Happy, you disappeared.
Sorry. I was turning out a light. I thought it was getting too dark.
From the neck down, you were just all of a sudden all this jumble of pixels and everything. No, but when you work from home and then you have to be pulled in all sorts of different directions like that, it can be extremely frustrating.
It's a little challenging.
Yeah, just a skosh. Okay, so my next questions. Do you prefer to be in front of a mic acting or behind the mic directing? But I already know the answer to that because we already talked about that.
For sure. I like directing films. I like being in front of the camera on films. I like acting on stage. I enjoy acting behind the mic. It's not as artistically fulfilling as a lot of the other forms of acting. But it is It is fun for sure. But yeah, I definitely prefer if I had to direct or be in front of the mic. I don't know. Maybe I'd like to direct now. Maybe I'd enjoy that more.
You think?
I
You
don't
actually
know.
think?
I don't know. Maybe I'm old enough that sitting and not doing anything.
I've given you something to think about.
Yeah. No, I won't. I'm not doing it.
Okay, so oh yeah, this is a completely side question. It's connected to anime, but were you not in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood? I thought you were.
Briefly. I think I had like 7 or 8 lines, so it was a
Yeah,
much shorter
very much compressed
introduction to him. I came in to record and I was all excited, and Mike McFarland, the director, is like, "All right, that's it." And I was like, "That's it?" He's like, "Yeah, you're done." I'm like, "The whole series?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh man."
I know they compress. Yeah, I noticed that too when I watched it. But when I was looking through your IMDb stuff and your Wikipedia page to kind of refresh my memory, because most of the stuff you've worked on, I'm not as into anime as my kids are. So
of course,
but I do know some of the stuff, and I was like, I didn't see your name there with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but I thought for sure I remembered hearing you.
Yeah, Shaw Tucker.
Okay, yeah, I know. I remember, but it was just a real short storyline. He didn't last.
No.
No, he didn't last. But I just wanted to ask that. That was like more of a curiosity question, just to get that out of the way. So, okay, so you posted something a few days ago about what happened to you 10 years ago this month.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, your heart attack. What, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but I was going to ask, what did it feel like? How did you, what were your signs? Because for everybody, it can be different.
Yeah. So I was working and doing research for a film in DC.
Okay.
And the day before the heart attack, I had a little like wink, and I was like, "Whoa, what was that?"
Painful like, or like
yeah, like I describe it like that one, like, you know how sometimes like you'll drink something cold and your tooth will go wah, wah, and then it immediately goes away, and you go,
right?
Oh, thank God, that's
right.
And it was kind of like that, and I just classic dude fashion, like. Would have been great if I would have been like, you know what, that I should go to the hospital immediately. But it went away. So I was like, well, I'm going to keep working. Mm. And then the next day I went to my sister-in-law's house and had some pizza, came back home. I was at an Airbnb in DC and went to my room, and it just felt like I was convinced it was the pizza, because it feels like you're like, and then I'm Googling, I'm like, what is this? I was like, oh, is it gallbladder? It feels like maybe it's a gallbladder thing. It just kind of like
indigestion or nausea or
no. It's like a pain, and it's like, and it'll kind of, but it never really went away.
Right.
And then it kind of went away, and I kind of fell asleep for a minute, and it was 2 or 3 in the morning. And then finally I was like, I'm going to get up and go to the airport. And if getting up and walking around doesn't make me feel better, I'm going to go to the hospital. So I got up, called the cab, and I was just kind of struggling through things like, oh, what is this? And then I was in the cab, and it kind of like, you know how like your tooth, it's like I'm hurting. And then it'll go, you need to fix me now. That's kind of what happened in my chest. And I was like, oh, this. And I told the cabbie, I'm like, go to a hospital. I said, nearest hospital, please. And he took me to the hospital. And I still have the bank record to show exactly when I paid for that cab, because I wanted to know like the exact moment the heart attack happened. It was like, I think it was like 9:37 in the morning.
Oh.
And I walked into the hospital, and they, I totally walked in. I had my bag, because I got my bags out of the car. And I walked in, and I was like, I think I might be having a heart attack. And they were like, okay.
I know.
Sure. Right. You're having a heart attack. and they
Well,
gave me
'cause you
this.
were young too, Chuck.
Yeah. This is 10 years ago. I was
Yeah.
39, and they gave me this little nurse and take off your shirt. She put some stuff on and pressed a button and got this readout, and she was like, I'm going to be right back. And she left the room. And then 14 people came in the room, and my pants were being taken off, and I was, they were, they were like, you were having a massive heart attack. And I was like, that's what I said.
Right. You didn't believe me.
I have a high pain tolerance, obviously. And that's not helpful for medical issues.
Right.
But I was laughing and joking. It was really stressful time in my life. And it's kind of a relief. I was like, oh, wow, I'm done.
Oh, no.
I was like, not done, like dead. Because I knew I was going to die. I had no fear of death. I had no fear that I was going to die ever.
No.
Maybe the night before I got up and decided I had to at least call the cab and start towards.
You were alone too. You weren't in a place where somebody could help you too. No, so that would be scary. Yeah.
And so they hooked me up with a stent. They did the stent there because I had a 99% occlusion in an artery they call the widowmaker. Oh. And they were like, Mr. Hüber, we don't know how you're alive. And I'm like, well, I got a pretty high pain tolerance. I got 5 kids. I got a lot to live for.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we are looking at your heart compression factor. It's at 8%. You should not be talking to us right now.
My goodness gracious.
And I was like, well, I'm an actor and I do a lot of breathing exercises. And they went to do chest film on me at the set, because then they packaged me up and put me in a helicopter and flew me to the best heart hospital in the country, as a matter of fact, in DC. And so I got to ride in a helicopter. It was cool.
Oh, yay.
And then there they more meds and I think they did another stint there or adjusted. I can't remember. But then they were doing a film they wanted chest film, and the guy said, the radiologist who's like, he's like, I've been doing this 25 years. I can't fit your lungs into one shot. I'm going to have to do 2 pictures. And so they had two pictures in order to get my, so apparently I have giant
big lungs.
And the whole time, and I'm a pretty good breather. I breathe religiously. I breathe all the time. I teach breathing techniques.
You do teach breathing techniques? Okay.
Oh, yeah. We have a breath technique in the class that's magnificent.
Right. That would make sense.
And so I think just the training and the acting, I think I was probably pumped, because if you think about it, your lungs and your diaphragm pump your lymphatic system, and it's just your heart is, so maybe it was just going but my lungs were going. I was doing full breaths the whole time. I wasn't going to let go of breathing. I think a lot of times what kills people is fear.
Right. Yeah.
Because had I been afraid, and then you get
you were shortening the breath. Exactly. Yep.
And I was like, I'm not going to die. And I was like, I'm not going yet. I got, and so I kept breathing. And then they prepped me for surgery. And I remember at one point, orderly was wheeling me back to my room. He's like, I heard you're Android 17. It's like, yeah. He's like, I love your show. I was like, oh, cool. And then it was like a day and a half later, I had open heart surgery, quintuple bypass, and they do not mess around anymore. The medical field is getting a little better for the physical surgeries that they do. I had the surgery, woke up in recovery. They make you stand up before you can move to the next sort of room. Mm-hmm. That was the hardest part. The hardest part was getting to that standing up the first time. That was the most pain.
Really? Just physically, or just the surgery hurt so much?
It was an amount of physical pain I had not been in before.
Yeah.
And the first attempt to stand up didn't black me out, but I needed to sit back down or I was going to pass out and vomit. Wow.
Oh,
the pain was so intense.
yeah.
So then a couple popsicles later, the nurse was like, "You want to give it a shot again?" And I was like, "Give me like 5 minutes to get my brain right, and then
Yeah.
we'll give it
So
a shot."
psyched
And
up.
I spent 5 minutes sort of like just focusing on, the idea that this is positive pain because it's healing me. It's not negative pain. And, so
Right.
once I got my brain psychologically around it, I was able to do it. But then I only stayed that night, and then they released me the next
Yeah.
day.
I saw you were released 2 days later or something like that. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
And then they're like, be sure to start walking right away. And so
Yeah.
it's very, very uncomfortable on the chest. And you got all these stitches, and they sawed you in half and cracked your chest open, stopped your
Yeah.
heart, drained all the blood, and took the big vein out of your leg and attached it.
Yeah.
And my heart is still goofy to this day. My cardiologist, I never heard my heart except at the extreme ends of physical, when you would feel it thumping in your chest, when you were running or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't notice your heart, but now I
Mhm.
notice it all the time. I can feel it in there all the time. And it works. It works. I do.
Oh, that's good. I mean, you're still here, so obviously it does.
do big long hikes. I do big cardio stuff. So I don't push it too hard on the red line. Like I don't red line it too hard, but I can go 20, 30, 40 miles in a day with the 2 or 3 days, 4 or 5 days in a row with a pack at altitude.
Well, when you say that you feel your heart, do you think that's just because now you're more in tune to it because of what happened, or is it because of what happened that now you're physically more aware of?
Yeah, it pumps different. It pumps different.
Really?
It's noisier.
Oh.
It will wiggle and tell me stuff that
Palpitations, like it skip a beat, things like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
yeah, that happens to me a lot.
You guys with your but it's I look at, like, does my cardiologist say what's my compression factor? How are my and all the numbers are right, and so it's like. And I'm still physically able to do stuff. The thing with it is, it's like, to me, it's like having a vintage car. It's an extremely good machine, but you can't. I was just running out, banging my heart like it was a Honda Accord, and I could just drive it for 300,000 miles. Stress,
right?
Just stress on top of stress. So now I have, a '69 convertible Mustang, with the original engine. It's got some new gaskets, and so I don't commute to a stressful job in stop and go traffic with my heart anymore. That's why my life is the way it is. So I plan on being around for quite a long time.
Well, I mean, we hope that you are, Chuck.
Yeah, but if I die tomorrow, I'm good. I've done this enough.
Don't jinx it.
No, I'm not jinxing it. You fail to live properly if you do not embrace death. Death is the equalizer for everyone on the planet, except maybe the reptoids. Maybe they have a way of existing beyond whatever.
Yeah.
I've never met a reptoid, so I'm just assuming they have a different process than us. But like once you accept death into your psyche. Tim Ferriss had, I forget who he had on his podcast, but the person who was on said, take as a given that you only have 5 years left, maybe 10 years, 5 years, depends on your age. It depends on how it makes you feel, but take that as a given that you've only got 5 years left. What would you delete from your life? What would you not do anymore? And suddenly I'm like, that sort of clarity, I have a very, tangible way of engaging with that metaphysical idea. So I do that every day. I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. That's part of where that, like, auditioning for all the anime up at Funimation and trying to be in as many shows as you can. Yeah. Like, if I was going to die in 5 years, is that what I'd be doing?
Yeah.
No. I'd be writing my poems. I'd be hanging out at the house with the kids. I'd be
Yeah.
working on the tiny house in the back. I'd be going to the shooting range or goofing around with friends or taking hikes, writing meaningful things that are important to me, instead of like, I'm going to, teaching, expressing my any knowledge that I do have, which is mostly stolen from other people. That's the way it works. That's the way it works. Yeah, no, artists steal. We steal.
I mean, you borrow. You borrow.
No. Borrowing's bad. You got to steal
flat
it.
out steal. Okay.
Steal it.
Make it your own.
Your own.
Make it your own. That reminds me of.
This is mine.
That reminds me of something Matthew McConaughey's mother told him when he was you. I recently listened to his audiobook, Green Lights, and his mother basically was like the same thing. He plagiarized this poem when he was 12. On the advice of his mother, because it was like, well, what does it mean to you? Is that yours? Does that mean something to you? Then you own it. And so that's what he did. He got an award and everything.
That's true.
It's kind of funny. But yeah. So with what happened with you, was it a genetic issue with your heart or just stress?
Well, there's two stories. So the first story is I was researching a film that was a musical comedy about September 11th. And I was in Washington, D.C.
to meet
with my friend Karen, whose dad was the highest ranking lieutenant general, killed right at the point of attack. So we went to his grave at Arlington and then went to the memorial at the Pentagon, and then I pitched her my movie because I couldn't pitch all the survivors, but I needed to pitch one at least.
Yeah.
And she didn't agree with everything in the movie, but she agreed that the myth of it needed to be explored or taken down a notch, because she said she and her sister used to sit there and say, take bets on how long it would be till any politician talking would mention September 11th. She said it'd just become a big political football for everybody.
Yeah.
And so before I went to DC, I told my producing partners, I said, if I die of a mysterious heart attack while I'm in Washington, DC, the CIA got to me.
Oh, no.
And the CIA testified in front of Congress in the 70s that they had a heart attack gun. So they had that in the 70s, and this was 2010. So... And there was this weird couple in the Airbnb who said they were from Wisconsin, and they said they were from Kenosha. And I used to live in Milwaukee, and everybody goes to Summerfest, and it was a big music festival. And I went, "Oh, Kenosha! I'm like, you're from Wisconsin?" I'm like, "From Mequon." I'm like, "Summerfest," and they were like blanks. Normally, anyone from Milwaukee or that area, you say Summerfest, and that's
they would know. Yeah,
starting up the conversation. These two just kind of looked at me. And that morning when I was leaving, they were having breakfast in the little kitchen area, and he wouldn't look at me at all. And I was obviously in distress. He wouldn't look at me at all. And she just couldn't keep her eyes off me. So I don't know. I may have got heart attacked.
Oh my gosh. That's
but the second story is my great grandfather, my grandfather's father. And this is the more likely story. It's fun mythological story for me fighting.
You should write a novel about
right. But my great grandfather dropped dead at 40 from a heart attack. So my grandmother's father dropped dead at the same age, roughly same age. Just right there in the front room, came home and dropped dead.
Oh, jeez.
So, and I don't know how reality works. Maybe I died in that universe in DC, and this is my purgatory I'm working out.
We're in a multiverse right now. That's what it is.
It's a very, very plausible thing. I do a panel called Game Church because I wanted to start a religion so I wouldn't have to pay taxes. And Jessica said, if you start a religion, it better be something you believe. So I started Game Church, I didn't really start a religion, but it's a panel we do. And we talk about what can you gain from video games? What can you apply from video games to your own life? And in the classes I teach, it brings a lot of insight, because like in video games, you always know that you can get to the next level. Mm-hmm. You never get to a level in a video game and you're like, well, I'm just going to be stuck here forever. but in our lives, sometimes we're like, this must be it. Because in a video game, if I want something to change, I have to do something different. I can't just keep trying to do the same thing over and over again and expect that intuitively in a video game that you have to seek out different avenues, increase your strength. Also in video games, like you open a map, and in our lives, we open maps and we sort of do something new and fail at it. And then we go, well, we're not going to do that again. Whereas in a video game, you open that new area of the map, you're certain you're going to fail the first time you go meet that boss or that new challenge or whatever it is. You're going to have to go back, reboot, and try it again, or go back, get more skills, get, buff up, whatever you need to do. So like those things we take, and in video games, you don't have anxiety or depression. You're never thinking about the future of the video game or the past of the video. That part in the past made me sad. No, you don't care. You're right here with your controller. And we talk about the body as your controller. And what are you doing with your body? So when it comes to multiverse theory, that's totally possible. Totally possible.
That's cool. Do you introduce that in your okay, so the very first panel of yours that I went to, it had to do with science and space.
The electric universe panel?
That one, yeah. Do you still do that? Well, I mean, cons aren't happening, but had you still been doing that?
It was folded into the Game Church panel. It was kind of Electric Universe was a little limited in its scope, so I kind of opened it up. We talked. So I do some of it in the Game Church panel. I should do the full electric. There's a lot of new fun stuff. The universe is definitely electric. There's no denying the Birkeland currents. You can see twisted pairs, in nebula. You're like, that looks like that's the electrical signature of life. Hexagonal craters is what did it for me. Somebody on a board somewhere was like, look up hexagonal craters. And I was like, craters shouldn't be hexagons unless they're electrical scarring. So, but yeah, Electric Universe is fun. I got to pal around with those guys 2 years in a row at their conference. The first year, just as a documentary filmmaker, and the second year as a speaker. And I was joking around in the green room. They were doing interviews, and I was filming while they were doing interviews. And these are big science heads. Rupert Sheldrake was there, and I joked. I was like, "You guys you're aliens. Some of you are aliens, right? Releasing this information to us." And Susan, one of the leaders, she's like laughed like a cone head. And I was like, oh shit, you're really an alien. And come to find out, she's like, she thinks she's an alien.
For real.
She like, those channeling people who like,
okay.
Are in contact. My friend, Ruben Langdon, he on Gaia TV. He interviews extra dimensionals. I don't understand that. I'm not fully into that. Like I don't want to play that part of the game. I'm like, oh, that looks like fun for you guys. I'm gonna stick here and do this. But yeah, I mean, I think we are limited in our view of what we think reality is by the structures that psychically vulture us for their own energy, for their own money. We're constantly pressed by all the things that want our time. And I just told my sons this morning, I said, your greatest resource isn't time. Your greatest resource is your attention.
Yeah.
Because your time, that's static. Your attention is flexible.
Yeah, exactly.
And with all these things trying to take your attention, it's difficult. It's overwhelming. It is. It can be very overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. You have, I mean, I enjoyed that Electric Universe panel a lot. I don't understand a lot about science, but it was very interesting to sit in. I think I sat in on 2 of them.
They're fun. Did you do Did we do the Band-Aids at the end?
No, I don't think
I didn't bring Band-Aids that time.
I don't think so, no.
If you take really good, whatever the name brand, I think Band-Aid, the name brand Band-Aids, and you go, or Scotch tape will do it too. You go into a really dark room, let your eyes adjust, and then open the Band-Aid. You will see blue electricity as where the adhesive
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I would pass out. People do it with Scotch tape. You can kind of go and see a lot of it. But I was like, I'm not buying Scotch tape for 50 people in the.
Right.
But I buy 4 or 5 boxes of Band-Aids for $12 or whatever, and pass out Band-Aids to everybody, and they do.
So what do you do? You just stretch it real fast?
You as you're ripping it open. Right where the adhesive is, there's adhesive down both sides. Right where that adhesive is, you'll see.
Oh, you mean the packaging that holds the
Band-Aid? The individual Band-Aid. Yeah, the packaging.
Oh, the actual.
Yeah. The thing that the Band-Aid's inside, not the actual Band-Aid, but the packaging around.
Okay. All right, I had that completely wrong.
Yeah, go grab a Band-Aid. For some reason I bought like cheap Band-Aids one time, and everybody went like that, and they're like, nothing happened. Yeah. Like, oh, crap. So you got to get the good Band-Aids.
You have to get high quality name brand Band-Aids. Yeah. Okay, so all right. Well, one last question,
sure.
And that's about, and this was just one that came to me as we were talking, and I can't believe I forgot to write it down. Your work in Star Trek continues.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty much done. Yeah. Or do you guys have any plans at all, maybe in the future?
I don't know, especially after Grant died.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was this is big blow. I don't know. Maybe there's something in the future. Maybe, but it kind of finished its beat.
Yeah.
It finished its thing. It's a real nice complete package now. To add anything onto it would kind of be. It would almost kind of cheapen it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's some rumblings of some new original properties that might be sci-fi and done with a similar group of people. So that could occur, but
yeah.
Other than that, it was a great fan. It was great. That was it's one of my. It was a lot. That was a lot of fun. It was fun to be well received by the Star Trek community. Is a difficult task.
It was so well done, though. I mean, I was amazed at the quality of the work on that, and it was extremely impressive, and it did look like you guys had a lot of fun. And everybody who was cast was just so they seemed like they were so perfect for the part. It would just you all fit together so well, and it was and I'm not a huge Trekkie, but I just sort of superficially enjoy it. And so I enjoyed watching that, and I just was like, I need to ask him about that, because that was kind of a big thing. How many years was it? Years you guys were?
It was like 5 years of doing it for about 2 weeks, twice a year. So it was like camp. So you'd block out 2 weeks,
go have fun,
and you go to Kingsland, Georgia, and stay in a not the nicest motel. But you're mostly at the studio, so who cares? And they had decent restaurants, they had some decent restaurants in town, so we'd all go out to eat, and people, guest stars coming in, Lou Ferrigno and Gigi Edgley.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot he was in there.
Cass Anvar and a bunch of people. I love The Expanse. I'm itching to get to the new season. I actually don't remember the last season too well, so I'm kind of going.
You need to go back and rewatch. Yeah, see, I haven't started it yet, but I do have it. My brother bought it on our Vudu account. We share a Vudu account, but I've heard it's really, really good.
That's good. This is a lot of fun. Straight up sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I need to get around to. There's so many things I want to see, and
it's true.
Life is so busy. I got to decide what I want to give my attention to.
That's right.
Yeah. Exactly.
You make the choice.
Yes, exactly. Okay, well, this was so much fun, Chuck. It was
absolutely. It was good to see you too.
Yeah, thank you for giving me your attention.
That's right. That's right. Well, people who support me, and that's all the fans. They get my attention first, for sure. Yeah. And mothers of fans. If I'm not going to give my attention to the people that made my career, then I don't think that's very upstanding.
No,
so, absolutely.
I don't think it is either. But it's always nice when you come across people who do that, because not everybody is like that. And so you've always been extremely approachable, and and Jess is so sweet. And I remember, I think the last time we ever saw each other was in 2016, early 2016.
Wow.
you and I we were already Facebook friends at that point. So the reason I started becoming Facebook friends with different voice actors was because my daughter Aurelia was thinking about getting in the industry. And I was like, well, if you're going to do that, I kind of feel like I would sort of like to know the people and just kind of know the crowd that you might be interacting with. So it was more like that. And then I started getting into it as well with audiobooks. And so then we met you for the first time, I think in 2015, you and Jess. And then a few months later at the next con. So I think you and I have only seen each other maybe twice face to face, but we were already Facebook friends. And I remember Aurelia had done a picture for you guys, Stein and the little peppermint girl.
Right. Yeah.
She just said that she tried to tag me when she took a picture of it, but we weren't friends or something like that. And I just remember you saying to her, why aren't you friends? You're not friends. I don't know. These little memories just kind of stick in my brain. It was just, that was a fun time. So that was really, and it just feels like so much time has gone by. And at the same moment, it doesn't feel like that much time has gone by.
No, time is weird now.
Really fast the older you get.
Yeah, it does.
Not cool at all.
Stay focused, stay present.
Exactly. And be selective about your attention.
That's right.
Okay, well, I won't keep you any longer. I'll let you go about your day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I look forward to putting this up on the channel. Would you like to see a copy of it before I put it up?
No, not before. Just send me a link and I'll tweet it or whatever. Tag me in a thing.
Okay, I didn't. Some people get maybe a little bit leery about doing interviews, maybe afraid they're going to be edited in a funky way, and but I just typically leave everything in. I only edit out maybe super personal stuff and, sort of, but it'll be mostly intact. So I'll send you a link when I'm done.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a great day and great New Year's and everything. Tell them to get high and
I will.
take care.
Okay. Take care.
Bye, Chuck.
Bye.